So how do we define ourselves was really kind of the focal point for my personal narrative. How can I define myself? And all these images ran through my mind, but the one thing that really stood out was writing, and I consider myself a writer. So I knew of no other way to approach it other than from the writing perspective or being a writer. So I chose to kind of obviously have that be my focal point. That's how I choose to define myself. But then I went a little step further and I tried to implement something that would set me apart. Well, and the only thing that I really knew that set me apart was the fact that I'm a minority. So then I kind of concentrated a little bit more on that, and that's how we got. So my personal narrative has helped me discover who I am, not only as a person and a human being, but as a writer, as was the core essential of the whole piece. So it's kind of me discovering myself as a writer, and specifically a minority writer, and kind of the struggles that I've endured as a writer. And I guess what I really want to do is just kind of share the ending of it, maybe have some images that have been conjured in my mind as I was writing the piece, and we'll go from there. So I'm just going to share the ending. One day, before I began, I just wanted to obviously put the title out there of my first personal narrative, and it was Changing Times, Writing from the Perspective of the Sovereign. So here's just a little sample, what I call the conclusion anyway. So one day, I can say that this inner struggle will cease, and integration will coexist. All the while, I will continue to fight, to push against the grain of oppression, seeking not to find new light in the struggle, but shed light upon the oppressor, to remind them that I am not beneath them, but a threat to them, that in this present state of war, it is in their best interest to give in, for I come from a culture of struggle, one that has long endured the oppression of the white man, and yet has prevailed. Therefore, I will endure all that is thrown at me, all the while becoming a formidable opponent whose strength cannot be ignored, watching as you try to tear all that I am right before me. Yet, I will continue to build myself back up. I am tenacious, preserving, and impervious as the very mount you stand on, yet possessing pliability that renders me unbreakable. I am a sovereign Hispanic, and I shall triumph. So when thinking about what I was going to write about for my second personal narrative, I really kind of asked myself, okay, well, you chose to define yourself as a writer in your last piece, so now what are you going to do? How are you going to define yourself? And the only way I knew how to do that really was to kind of take a step back and look at how I've come to be over, the last decade or so. I hate to say it that way, makes me sound old, but yeah, kind of how I've come to be, how I've started from adolescence to, my childhood into my teenage years and kind of still in them now, but, kind of now this progression into adulthood. And so, like I said, I decided to take a step back and, you know, it's actually what really sparked this writing, which is kind of weird. I was reading an article about SES, or otherwise known as socioeconomic status, and I couldn't help but think of my own story. I didn't grow up rich or even really middle class, so when I read that article and I heard, or I shouldn't say I heard, and I read, that SES was a good indication of how people would turn out, or and how they would turn out in life. I was really shocked, because I've never let it stop never let it stop me from achieving anything. So that was kind of the influence for this piece. I wanted to kind of show how I had to have struggled early on to become a success now. So it's kind of one of those dynamics. So I really just wanted to read a piece, like a small fraction of it, kind of one of my favorite lines. I shouldn't say favorite, but it kind of depicts really the struggles of that time, like growing up. And so here it is. At the age of 4, my parents divorced, further lowering my status on the totem pole. Yet, my mother, now a college graduate, had made it her mission for me to succeed with all odds against me. I would spend most of my childhood attending a very private and expensive Catholic school my mother could not afford, struggling barely to get by in all major subject areas except math. Oh, how I envied math. There was always a finite answer. Either you were right or wrong. There was no in between. It was, in a sense, the only stability in my life. And the reason I chose that paragraph was just kind of to depict the real emotion, the real struggle that I was enduring that time in my life. And I thought it was... So before I officially sign off, I just want to leave you guys with one last piece. I decided to stick with poetry. I thought it was a good representation of a little bit about my life, a little bit of my struggles, my endeavors. What I really liked about this piece was during peer review, everyone seemed to have gotten a different interpretation of it, and so I thought that was really interesting, and it kind of made me want to share it at the end. So here it is. Acceptance, the road to freedom. Before you, all I wanted was freedom. The freedom to be who I am. But you constantly kicked me down, down, down. Having to be all but what I am. Look at me, and look at me clear. I am what I am, and you still unsure of who you are. I am all of 18, and you 41. But I know exactly who I am. You sit day in and day out, wondering of how your life could be different. But I just sit and embrace in the life that I'm living in the times that are changing. Change, a progression I know all too well. Look at me, and look at me clear. I am everything I wanted to be, and so much more. I am what you're not. Look at me, and look at me clear. I'm a success because I know who I am, and it's so.
I've traveled all this way for something. I take it in, but don't look down. 'Cause I'm on top of the world. Hey.